Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
Today we're going to be talking about Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
Yeah, this book has been super popular. And
I see why.
yeah, it's a really interesting look at how tiny changes can lead to big results.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that makes it so compelling is Clear's own story. Like, he starts the book with this crazy story about a baseball injury.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that at first. Like, what does baseball have to do with habits?
Right. It seems totally random, but it actually illustrates the core concept of the book perfectly. Like, this idea of the compounding effect. You know, Clear had to rebuild his life literally step by step after this injury, and it just shows how these tiny gains can add up over time.
Yeah, like little by little.
Exactly. And it's the same principle with habits, you know, whether they're good or bad. These small actions that we repeat day after day, they really accumulate and create these massive results over time.
So it's like investing, but for your habits.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's like that $1 a day example Clear gives, right?
Yeah. Yeah, he talks about how spending just $1 more every day adds up to like over $3,000 in a year.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, and that's just $1. Imagine if it was like $5 or $10.
Right. Or if you think about it in terms of positive habits, like imagine if you spent just 10 minutes a day learning a new language or practicing a skill.
Yeah, or even just like going for a walk or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those small efforts done consistently over time, they really do add up to something significant.
So we get small changes matter, but how do we actually make those changes stick?
Well, that's where the 4 stages of habit formation come in.
Okay. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
You got it. So the cue is what triggers the habit.
Okay.
The craving is the motivation behind it. The response is the actual habit you perform. And then the reward is that positive reinforcement that makes you want to repeat it.
So it's like a cycle.
Exactly. It's a loop. And understanding these stages is crucial for, you know, hacking the system and making good habits stick.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all comes together, but there's another part of the book that really intrigued me.
Okay.
This whole idea of identity-based habits.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful concept.
Yeah.
Cleary argues that lasting change starts with shifting your identity.
Okay.
It's not just about setting goals. It's about actually becoming the kind of person who naturally does those things.
Like, you don't have to force yourself to eat healthy.
Right.
If you see yourself as someone who prioritizes their health.
Exactly. It's about aligning your actions with your desired identity.
It's almost like fake it till you make it, but for your habits.
Yeah, and the book has this incredible story by the Polgar sisters.
Oh, yeah.
These chess prodigies.
Yeah, they were amazing.
Right, and they were raised in an environment where chess was like just a normal part of life. You know, their environment shaped their identity.
Yeah, and their identity fueled their success.
That's a powerful example of how environment can influence our habits.
Absolutely.
Speaking of environment, Clear also talks about how willpower is overrated.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's much easier to change our surroundings than to constantly fight temptation.
Right. Willpower is a finite resource.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
So instead of relying on willpower alone,
Yeah.
you can design your environment to make good habits obvious and easy,
Okay.
and bad habits invisible and difficult.
So like rearranging my kitchen so that healthy snacks are front and center.
Exactly.
Or putting my phone in another room when I need to focus.
Exactly. Those are great examples.
Okay.
It's about reducing friction and making good choices the path of least resistance.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Now, we can't talk about habits without talking about rewards, right?
Of course not.
Like, Clear delves into how our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
And how we can leverage that to make long-term habits more appealing.
Exactly. It's about hacking that reward system.
Okay.
Even something as simple as checking off a task on your to-do list can release a little hit of dopamine.
Oh, yeah.
Which makes you more likely to repeat that behavior.
And then there's habit tracking too, right?
Absolutely.
Like actually seeing your progress.
Yeah, it's incredibly motivating.
It is.
To visually see those little boxes checked off or those streaks on a habit tracker. It gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Right. And he also talks about adding a bit of pain to bad habits.
Oh, yeah?
Like having to pay a friend every time you slip up.
Right. It's about accountability.
Yeah.
It's about creating a system that works for you, not against you.
I'm really starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Yeah, it's all connected.
So Clear also introduces this concept of the Goldilocks rule.
Yes.
Finding that sweet spot of challenge where habits are neither too easy nor too hard.
It's about maintaining that balance to keep yourself engaged and motivated.
Yeah, because if it's too easy, you get bored.
Exactly.
If it's too hard,
you give up.
Yeah, you give up.
It's got to be just right.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
And I'm already feeling inspired.
Good.
What's one key takeaway you think listeners should keep in mind from what we've talked about so far?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that small changes, consistently applied, they can really lead to remarkable transformations. Don't underestimate the power of tiny improvements over time.
Absolutely. And we're just getting started. We'll be back in a moment to dive even deeper into the world of atomic habits and explore specific strategies for building better habits and breaking bad ones. So stay tuned.
Looking forward to it. Welcome back.
Okay, so let's dive even deeper into this whole idea of actually putting these principles into action.
Right, because it's one thing to understand the theory, but it's another thing to actually apply it.
Exactly. So where do we even begin?
Well, Clear lays out these 4 laws of behavior change.
Okay.
It's almost like a set of rules for making good habits easier and bad habits harder.
Okay, on all ears, break it down for us.
All right, so the first law is make it obvious.
Okay.
This is all about bringing awareness to your habits and making the cues that trigger them more prominent.
Okay, so instead of relying on memory or motivation, you're creating visual reminders and prompts.
Exactly. You're basically setting yourself up for success by making the desired behavior the most obvious and easy choice.
Okay, so like if I wanted to start a daily meditation practice, I could leave my meditation cushion out in a visible spot.
Exactly.
Rather than tucked away in a closet.
Perfect example.
Okay.
It's about making it easy to do the right thing.
I like that.
Now, the second law is make it attractive.
Okay, this is where we tap into the brain's reward system, right?
Absolutely. The more appealing a habit is, the more likely you are to stick with it.
Okay, I can see how that works for things like watching a favorite show or something.
Right.
But how do you make something like doing taxes more attractive?
Well, it's not always about making the habit itself enjoyable, but rather associating it with something you do enjoy. Clear talks about this idea of habit bundling. Pairing a habit you want to do with one you need to do.
Oh, right. So like listening to a podcast while I'm folding laundry.
Exactly.
Or catching up on emails while I'm on the treadmill.
Perfect examples. You're essentially using the enjoyable activity as a reward or an incentive for completing the less desirable one.
Okay, that's a good strategy.
It is.
All right, what about the third law?
The third law is make it easy.
Okay.
And it might sound counterintuitive, but it's all about reducing friction and making the habit as simple as possible to start.
So I've heard Clear talk about this 2-minute rule.
Yes.
Is that what you're referring to?
Precisely. The idea is to break down a habit into a tiny action that takes less than 2 minutes to do. So instead of write a novel, it becomes write one sentence. Instead of clean the whole house, it becomes put away 5 things.
Okay.
The key is to make the starting point so easy that you can't say no.
I love that.
Yeah.
It takes the pressure off.
It does.
Okay, so what's the fourth and final law?
The fourth law is make it satisfying.
Okay.
And this ties back to that reward system we talked about earlier. The more satisfying a habit is, the more likely you are to repeat it.
Okay.
Clear talks about the importance of immediate rewards, even if they're small.
So like giving myself a high five after a workout. Or treating myself to a healthy smoothie after a week of meal prepping.
Exactly. It's about associating the habit with a positive feeling, which reinforces that behavior.
Okay, and then there's habit tracking again too, right?
Yes, habit tracking is a great way to make your progress visible and tangible.
Yeah, there's something so motivating about seeing those little boxes checked off.
Or those streaks on a habit tracker app.
Absolutely.
Okay, so these 4 laws provide like a really great framework for building better habits. But what about those stubborn bad habits that just seem impossible to break?
Right. We all have them.
Yeah, like we all have those.
Of course.
So how do we deal with those?
Well, that's where understanding the role of temptation and craving becomes so crucial.
Okay.
Clear argues that our environment is often working against us.
Yeah.
It's constantly bombarding us with these cues that trigger those cravings.
Yeah, it's like we're surrounded by temptations.
We are.
The smell of freshly baked cookies.
Yeah.
The endless scroll on social media. The ads for fast food.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
And those cues, they trigger the craving, which then leads to the habitual response. Yeah. So one of the most effective strategies for breaking a bad habit is to reduce exposure to those cues.
So if I'm trying to cut back on sugar...
I should probably stop keeping candy in the house.
Exactly. Out of sight, out of mind.
Okay.
Another powerful strategy is to reframe the way you think about the habit.
Okay, how do you mean?
Instead of focusing on what you're giving up, focus on what you're gaining.
Okay, so instead of I can't eat pizza anymore.
Right.
It becomes I'm choosing to nourish my body with healthy foods.
It's a subtle mindset shift.
Yeah.
But it can make a big difference in how you perceive the habit.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not about beating ourselves up for having craving.
Right.
It's about understanding how those cravings work.
Exactly.
And then using that knowledge to make better choices.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, it is.
Because we often shame ourselves for having these cravings, but it's important to remember that they're a natural part of being human.
Right.
It's what we do with those cravings.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, speaking of cravings, Clear has some really interesting insights on food and habit formation, right?
Oh, absolutely. He dives deep into the science behind why we crave certain foods and how the modern food industry has basically hijacked our brains.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So our brains are wired to crave salt, sugar, and fat.
Okay.
These were things that were scarce for our ancestors and essential for survival.
Right.
But now those things are readily available everywhere.
They are.
Which makes it so much harder to resist overindulging.
Yeah, because our brains are still programmed for a time when those things were scarce.
Exactly. And food companies have become experts at engineering their products to be hyper palatable. Using a combination of flavors, textures, and smells to trigger our cravings and make us want to eat more, even when we're not actually hungry.
It's like a constant battle.
It is.
Against our biology and our environment.
It's tough out there.
It is tough out there.
But it's important to be aware of these tactics so we can make more informed choices about what we eat. Remember, you're not weak for having cravings, but you are empowered to make conscious decisions.
I love that.
Yeah.
This is all incredibly insightful.
Good. I'm glad you're finding it helpful.
Yeah, I'm starting to see how everything we've discussed so far ties together.
It does.
The compounding effect, the 4 stages of habit formation, the 4 laws of behavior change, the role of environment, temptation, and even the science behind food cravings.
It's all connected. It's a comprehensive framework.
It is.
For understanding how habits work and how we can leverage that knowledge to create positive change in our lives.
Okay. I'm feeling a renewed sense of hope and possibility.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
But before we get too carried away, let's talk about what happens when we inevitably slip up.
Right.
Because let's be real. Nobody's perfect.
Nobody is perfect.
So how do we deal with those slip-ups?
Well, slip-ups are a normal part of the process.
Okay.
The key is to not let them derail your progress.
Okay.
Clear offers this helpful rule of thumb.
Okay, what is it?
Never miss twice.
Okay, so if I miss a workout? I should make sure I get back on track the next day.
Exactly. The goal is to avoid creating a pattern of missed opportunities.
Right.
It's not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about being consistent.
Got it.
Speaking of consistency, there's one more concept I think is worth highlighting.
Okay, what's that?
It's called habit shaping.
Okay.
This is the process of gradually increasing the difficulty or complexity of a habit over time.
So it's like leveling up in a video game.
Exactly.
You start with the easy stuff.
Right.
And then you work your way up to the more challenging tasks.
You got it. The key is to make those increases small enough that they don't feel overwhelming.
So you don't want to jump from like running a mile to running a marathon overnight?
Exactly. You want to gradually increase the distance over time.
I can see how that would be crucial.
Yeah.
For staying motivated and avoiding burnout.
Absolutely.
But how do we actually go about habit shaping?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to use what Clear calls habit stacking.
Okay.
This involves linking a new habit to an existing one.
Oh, so is this like that bundling thing?
It's similar to habit bundling, but there's a slight nuance.
Okay.
With habit stacking, you're specifically linking the new habit to a habit that you already do consistently.
Oh, okay. So for example, if I already make my bed every morning, I could stack the habit of meditating for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right after that.
That's a perfect example. The existing habit acts as a trigger for the new one.
Okay.
Making it more likely that you'll remember to do it.
So it's like creating a chain reaction of good habits.
That's a great way to put it. The more good habits you can chain together, the more momentum you'll build.
Okay, I'm starting to see the power of this approach.
Yeah.
It's about leveraging the consistency of existing habits to create new ones.
And remember, the key is to start small.
Okay.
And gradually increase the difficulty or complexity over time.
It's not about making drastic changes overnight.
No, it's a process.
Okay.
It's about building a solid foundation of positive habits that will support you in the long run.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Into the world of atomic habits.
Lots to unpack.
Yeah, I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for understanding and shaping my own habits.
That's the goal.
What stands out to you most from everything we've discussed?
I think the most important takeaway is that we are not simply victims of our habits.
Okay.
We have the power to change them. And it starts with understanding how they work.
Right.
By applying the principles outlined in Atomic Habits, we can design our lives in a way that makes it easier to become the best versions of ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's a message of hope and empowerment.
It is.
We're not stuck with the habits we have.
Nope.
We can choose to create the habits we want.
Exactly.
And as we've learned, it all starts with one small step.
One small step at a time.
All right. So I think we're ready to move on to our final thoughts and key takeaways from Atomic Habits.
Sounds good.
All right. So we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Atomic Habits.
It's been a good one.
It has been. We've covered a lot of ground here.
A lot of information.
Yeah. From the compounding effect of small changes.
Right.
To the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yeah.
And even the tricky science behind those food cravings.
Those cravings can be tough.
They really can.
But I think the message that resonates most is that we really do have the power to shape our habits and ultimately our lives.
Absolutely. It's not about being perfect or relying on willpower alone.
Willpower is not enough.
Yeah. It's about understanding how habits work.
Right.
And then strategically designing our environment and our systems to make those good habits easier.
Right.
And those bad habits harder.
Make it easy to do the right thing.
Yeah,
and then harder to do the wrong thing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, let's distill what we've learned into some key takeaways for our listeners.
All right. So I think first and foremost, it's crucial to identify your why, that deeper motivation behind the habits you want to build or break.
Yeah, like what's driving you?
Exactly. Having a clear sense of purpose is going to fuel your commitment and help you stay on track when things get tough.
That makes sense.
It does.
It's easy to get caught up in the mechanics of habit formation.
Right.
But without a strong why, it's harder to stay motivated in the long run.
Absolutely. It's like having a compass that guides you in the right direction.
Okay. So once you've identified your why, what's next?
Then the next step is to start small.
Okay.
Don't try to overhaul your entire life overnight.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Baby steps. Exactly. Focus on making one tiny change at a time.
Okay.
And then build from there.
Cleary really emphasizes
the
power of those atomic habits, right?
Absolutely. Those tiny incremental improvements that over time can lead to significant results.
It's not about making drastic changes.
Yeah.
It's about making consistent progress.
Exactly. And consistency is key.
Okay.
There will be days when you slip up.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You miss a workout or indulge in that extra cookie.
Happens to the best of us.
It does. The important thing is to not let those slip-ups derail your progress, as Clear reminds us. Never miss twice.
It's about getting back on track.
Right.
As quickly as possible.
Yeah, don't beat yourself up about it. Just get back on track.
And not letting those setbacks turn into patterns.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
I like that.
And there will be bumps along the way.
Okay, speaking of the journey.
Yes.
It's also important to celebrate your wins along the way.
Right. Absolutely. Acknowledge your progress.
Okay.
No matter how small.
Yeah.
Those little victories will keep you motivated and reinforce the positive changes you're making.
It's like giving yourself those little hits of dopamine.
Exactly. Those rewards that make you want to keep going.
And you don't have to do this alone.
Right? No, of course not.
Clear talks about the power of finding an accountability partner.
Yes.
Or joining a community of like-minded individuals who can support you.
Support is key.
Yeah.
Having that support system can make all the difference.
Yeah.
Especially when you're facing challenges or feeling discouraged.
Right.
It's about creating an environment that fosters growth and positive change.
Okay, this has been an incredible deep dive
into
Atomic Habits And I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
Yeah. I highly encourage our listeners to check out the book for themselves.
I second that it's a game changer.
Yeah.
For anyone looking to improve their lives.
Yeah.
One small habit at a time.
Okay, so as we wrap up here.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Just remember that even tiny changes consistently applied can lead to remarkable results.
Okay.
What's one small habit you could start or stop today that might just make all the difference a year from now?
That's a powerful question to ponder.
It is.
And on that note,
yeah,
we'll leave you with that thought until next time. Keep diving deep.
Keep learning.
And keep striving to become the best versions of yourselves.
Couldn't have said it better myself.